This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week, the House, we're not going to pass anything that looks like a red flag law, so that would be off the table.
The August special legislative session on public safety could be a waste of time. As Speaker Sexton says, the governor's proposed order of protection will not pass.
This is the third attempt to undercut oversight boards.
Frustration over a GOP-backed law to abolish the Nashville Community Oversight Board, replacing it with a much less powerful advisory committee.
They are 9 years old. What is happening with this?
TCAP scores that fail to reach the requirements of the third grade retention law can now be appealed to prevent students from being retained in third grade. More in our This Week cover story.
2/3 of the crimes that are reported are never cleared.
We continue our conversations with Nashville mayoral candidates. Tonight, hear from business leader and neighborhood activist who served in former Governor Bill Haslam's administration and former Senator Lamar Alexander's campaign chief, Alice Rowley. And a look back at Memorial Day as the nation celebrated the courage of veterans who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. Hello again and welcome to another edition of This Week. Trouble brewing for Governor Bill Lee's special session. Parents begin appealing TCAP scores. A conversation with Nashville mayoral candidate Alice Rowley, but we begin with a new law about to abolish the Nashville Community Oversight Board.
As the new third grade retention law continues to frustrate Tennessee parents,
we have to make sure that this tool we use is used in the right way, not as a frying pan to hit the kids over the head with.
They are 9 years old. What is happening with this?
The state opened up the appeals process for TCAP scores today. The law says parents and guardians must file the appeal within 14 days of test results. But today, the Department of Education tells me it's keeping the deadline open until June 30th.
The goal is to make sure that when somebody's progressing to the next grade, that they have the skills and abilities to do that.
Several Republican lawmakers are responding to the negative feedback from parents. Lebanon Republican Senator Mark Bodie recently received criticism for comments he made to a local Republican chapter back in February. He said, quote, "I've had parents tell me, Senator Bodie, we've got vacation plans. Vacation plans? Your child can't read." Today, he defended those comments.
To turn around and say that my summer vacation is more important than my child's education, I do not think that is right. And I'm going to put my foot down wherever I can and say, your child's education is more important than a summer vacation.
But parents have consistently argued their children can read, and one test doesn't accurately portray that.
You can't measure a kid's ability to read or his success based on any one data point.
We've made a lot of off-ramps for them to move on.
Daniel Gragg's son goes to school in Bodie's district. I asked if he had a message to lawmakers.
Take time to listen to the teachers, the people in the classrooms and in the schools working with our kids, because there's a disconnect here.
With a special session 2 months away, GOP support for Governor Bill Lee's order of protection is shaky at best. State Capitol reporter Chris O'Brien spoke with the governor and Speaker Cameron Sexton.
Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton was clear when I asked him about Governor Bill Lee's emergency relief protection order plan as it currently reads.
The House, we're not going to pass anything that looks like a red flag law, so that would be off the table.
Lee has maintained since the end of session in April after the school shooting at Covenant that his plan was the way forward. At least until today.
We've put that language out, and as I've said, it's a framework. I expect the General Assembly to look at it and determine if there are adjustments they want to make to that. We'll actually probably be putting out some other proposals as well.
Though he says his office hasn't fleshed those out yet. But Sexton says no matter what Lee calls the initial ERPO plan, it isn't passing right now.
Oh no, it's off the table. You can amend whatever you want to amend, and so you can get in committee, take a look at it, you can approve it, you can have meetings with stakeholders. I just know the General Assembly, especially the House, if it's a red flag law, it's not going to pass.
With the top member of Tennessee's House pushing against him, Lee is running out of avenues to weave his plan through. Where do we move forward from this? What is the plan?
I think there are a lot of ideas. There are a lot of beliefs that we should have protection for the people of our state, that we should protect the Second Amendment, that there are ways to provide public safety.
That leaves the pair at an impasse, with Tennesseans hanging in the balance. Though they both felt confident something would get done. Though Lee is boxed in here, he does have some power. Remember, the budget comes from him, and he can make certain promises in next year's. Now, will he do that for political influence? Well, that remains to be seen. He's never done that publicly, but the Covenant shooting really did take a toll on him. We'll continue to follow things as they continue to move forward toward that special session. For now in Clark Range, Chris O'Brien.
No one got everything they wanted. There were heated words on both sides, but in the end, Democrats and Republicans came together on a debt limit increase to prevent the first ever default that could have thrown the economy into recession.
The U.S. Senate considering the high-stakes debt ceiling bill negotiated between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Joe Biden, aimed at ensuring the U.S. government can keep paying its bills on time. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen had warned Congress to act by the June 5th deadline or risk a catastrophic U.S. default.
At this point, any needless delay or any last-minute holdups would be an unnecessary and even dangerous risk.
Behind the scenes, Senate leaders seeking swift passage raced to secure an agreement with members on about a dozen amendments to this legislation. Republicans also demanded assurances that the Senate would consider further increasing defense spending later in the year, as well as hold a vote on an emergency spending bill for additional Ukraine aid.
This is a budget of political compromise where people have lost sight of what the country needs.
This deal suspends the debt limit until January 2025 after the presidential election and rescinds billions of dollars in IRS and unused COVID-19 funding. Without it, economists warned of an economic downturn, delayed military salaries, halted Social Security, Medicaid, and veterans benefits, plummeting stocks, and potentially another recession.
We cannot neglect our fundamental obligation to address the nation's most pressing national security challenges.
President Biden has vowed to immediately sign the bill into law once it reaches his desk to avoid the nation's first ever default. Em Nguyen, ABC News, Washington.
On Memorial Day, Americans honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. A Memorial Day ceremony in Ashland City honored Tennessee heroes.
Every year in Ashland City, they gather.
I lost two uncles in World War II, twins. I'd tell people that my grandmother had them on the same day. She buried him on the same day.
The Cheatham County Veterans Memorial Park is usually humble and solemn, a quiet reminder of sacrifice and bravery. But today,
American, where at least I know I'm free.
Lost a lot of good friends from the county, Mike Day, Gary Oliver, just several of those that I went to school with.
Every year, the park holds a service on Memorial Day.
For me, there are faces and names because I served with men and who died, and so it's a sad day, but it's also a celebration of the freedom that we have because of their sacrifice.
Congressman Mark Green served in the Army and was a keynote speaker at the ceremony. He and the House are coming off a tense week that saw President Joe Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy come to a deal over the debt ceiling.
And this is not ultimately going to fix the country. We have got to cut spending even more. But I appreciate that it didn't cut veterans and it didn't cut the Department of Defense.
And for those veterans, Memorial Day is one that sticks out to them, though they'd tell you their memories extend far beyond just the day itself.
You really miss them, especially, the entire time, not just now.
In Ashland City, Chris O'Brien.
I know I'm free.
Now to our This Week cover story. In a month, a new state law will abolish the Nashville Approves Community Oversight Board here in Nashville, replacing it with a less powerful advisory committee. The stated goal, uniformity around the state.
On July 1st, a new law will go into effect in Tennessee. It abolishes community oversight boards and replaces them with statewide advisory committees chosen by each mayor.
This is the third attempt to undercut oversight boards.
Dr. Sekou Franklin is the political action chair for the state conference NAACP. The civil rights organization lamented the fact that there seems to be no legal action against the law.
We find that, the Metro Legal Department, for example, has almost put his foot in the ground and will not even think about challenging the state law.
Senator Mark Pody sponsored the bill, saying the state needed a universal method of holding law enforcement accountable.
At least from my point of view, from some things that I was hearing, was maybe a little bit more anti-police than what we should have had.
But Franklin points out the mayor appoints these new councils, so it's sort of like the fox guarding the hen house.
So that was just a head fake or a red herring, and it doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't it make any sense? We would never require police departments to have the same structure across the state.
Some Republicans said during session that COB members had contaminated evidence at crime scenes.
We had heard that there were actually some places in the state where some of the oversight members would actually go into a crime scene trying to find out what happened, but they were damaging evidence.
That's unfounded. That's not true. The COB does not do that.
I did reach out to the TBI to get some clarity on the issue and ask if it ever happened. I also asked if it didn't happen, why would lawmakers say the TBI told them it did? As of airtime, I have not received a response. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
Stay with us. This week continues in a moment, and a conversation with Nashville mayoral candidate Alice Rowley.